You? I'm very excited. We just came to the temple today and we had a great flight. Everything went so fluently. So we feel the energy is with us. I'm happy to see you all. Even Hanan, I see you. I know that you are in Thailand and I know that it was difficult for you to attend. And we're happy that all of you are with us. I've decided to make this webinar. We decided to make the webinar because I asked you about the topic about habits. The reason that we thought about habits is very, very simple because we all have them and we all deal with them on a daily basis. And we can use the Zen practice and the Zen master to ask, how do we deal with those habits? And we both, I believe, we can tell them, I can tell from my own experience as a senior one, but about habits and the change that it made in my life. And I will ask you some questions too. But I would like to start with a joke. Okay? Yes.
Let's try to make them laugh. Okay.
Not to make you laugh, but...
well, that's going to be harder. Talking about habits.
Talking about
not
habits.
So easy. Go ahead.
So, it's a joke that I've heard a few days ago, and you always talk about three things: imperfection, impermanence, and interdependence.
You got it right. You know, when you translate, sometimes it's not so easy.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
And this joke is about imperfection.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm getting suspicious.
So there was a guy in New York city, and he was standing on a sidewalk, and he was trying to catch a taxi, and a taxi driver saw him and just arrived and said to him, "Wow!" And he entered to the taxi and sat down, and the driver just turned to him and said, "Wow, you're just like Frank. You got everything at the time. Everything is so perfect." And the passenger said to him, "Like who? Frank who?" He said, "Yes, Frank Bauman. Everything was perfect with Frank." And he said, the passenger said, "Everybody had bad days or clouds from time to time." And the driver said, No, not Frank Bauman. Everything was perfect with Frank." So he said, Frank knew to play tennis. He could play the Grand Slam, and he could dance like a dancer in Broadway, and he could sing out like opera singer, and he could find any way to get anywhere, and he never stopped in traffic jams. Everything was so wonderful for him. So the passenger said to him, "Wow, it sounds a very nice guy." So he said, "That's not at all, He had a memory like a computer, and he knew how to talk to a woman, and he knew how not to fight with her. And if they fought, he knew how to say the correct words and to give the correct presents. And he knew to do so many things." And he said to him, "Wow, you sound like a very, very wonderful person. I'm very happy that you had the chance to meet him." So the driver said, No. I did not meet him. I had the honor to marry his widow."
That's good.
That's good.
That's good.
It's imperfection. The widow, she always, it's about the basic habit that we all have about complaining and about comparing people to others. So I heard this joke, so you weren't laughing, but
I think this is a perfect start. It totally changed my mood. I started to trust humanity again just a minute ago.
Thank you.
This is good.
Thank you. So I would like to ask you something. Right. We all deal with habits, and we know that it is as if we have no time. We react very fast when we have a habit, and we are not always aware of acting out of the habit itself. So how do we create a space that, by the Zen practice, a space that changes the reaction and gives us a way to choose or to react differently?
All right, so first let's talk about a little bit our mind and space, because our original nature is really clear like space, clear like a mirror, and that's not just a statement. Anybody who did some meditation started to differentiate the mirror from its object, the mind from its creation, yourself and the habits that you create and follow. And once you do that, you're on the path of awakening, because your mind space will always be bigger than your karma. When your mind space is large, you have choice. When your mind space is limited, you have limited choices. And when your karma totally fills up your inner world, then you have no choice. You're acting things out, you're saying things, doing things, feeling things, thinking things. Then you're on what we call the autopilot of your karma. That's not your intuition. It's just the habit force controlling you, depending on your company, on your environment, on the sensory perceptions.
On our parents.
Oh yeah. On our conditioning, because if you love imperfection, I also love interdependence, how we depend on each other and the world.
Yeah.
So mind space is everything, because that's what gives you choice. And very few people actually would identify the practice of meditation as having a choice, what we do. If you turn this around, you can always see that successful people, they always had choices that other people had, but they made decisions that other people did not make. So the very beginning of our adult life or career, we have choices that we can make, but we don't make them because we follow some other habits, okay? And these habits can seriously control us and bind us depending on our identification. So if we want to change our habits, then I think the very first thing is to differentiate the factory from the product, but take full responsibility for it. So we see ourselves as a sentient being with the hardware and the software, and we create our lives, our mind stream, but that's not who we are. The creation itself is our responsibility and freedom, but we do not, and we should not identify with our habits if we want to change them.
But at the beginning, we
always do. That's what defines a sentient being. We believe that hardware and software are inseparable.
Is it inevitable?
Yeah, I
think.
Do
we need to go through that?
Yeah, we do. Like being born means you have to grow up.
Mm.
You have to grow up, you have to face your own previous identities or the imprints of those identities. And we have to go through our own follies and errors. Without making mistakes, we wouldn't suffer. And without suffering, we wouldn't realize what life is. And then we wouldn't choose different. We wouldn't consciously want alternatives. So the recognition of suffering is the key point to awakening later.
You know, when I started meditating, I think it was the anger, the habit of anger, that drove me to meditate. And at the beginning, of course, I was attached to it, and still I have some places that I do. But what practice made is the ability to observe it, to recognize it, and especially when I've started chanting, you know, instead of reacting of anger, I've started chanting inside my heart, so I could react differently. Yeah,
and the chanting acts like a firewall. It actually slows your reactions down. Also, it a little bit moderates the effect of the environment. Like some people use mantra to reduce pain.
Yeah.
Sometimes physical pain, sometimes emotional pain. So it's the environment plus our reactive mind together that gives us the experience. So just having some physical pain caused by others is one thing, but being afraid of it or being angry at it or being resentful, these two together, they produce the pain itself, not just the physical impulse.
Yeah.
Mantra practice is very beneficial because, again, it gives you mind space, and not only that, it's powerful enough to put a firewall up which doesn't separate you from the environment, but it really filters your reactions and actually filters the input towards you. And of course, it has other beneficial effects, but this is not a mantra class. We can talk about that later.
Yeah. tell me, when you started as a young monk, were there a habit that you were working on and that you used a different technique to help you? Really?
Yeah, abstraction, because when the mind flies away, sometimes flies out of the body and doesn't know where it is, and it's not just dream time, sometimes wakeful time. Controlling these habits meant that the capability of intelligent, intellectual, and abstract thinking, when it's in a kind of higher realm, can you really separate you from your body? And it's not good, because then the mind itself can have various sub-functions performed at the same time. It's multitasking. But if you lose the keyboard, you lose contact with reality. So for me, the most important part was to come back to this body, come back to this moment, come back to the world and see clearly, hear clearly, taste, smell, touch, think, feel, act, everything clear again at this moment. So Zen was giving me this one mind, not just one mind, but mind and body becoming one again, attaining this moment, become one with the world again. And that's very helpful.
So what did you use? Only to hear, only to see? What did you use?
At first, when you talked about becoming a monk, that was after the kind of 3 most important years in Zen for me, because I practiced as a layperson for over 3 years and then became a monk.
Yeah.
And I think that actually looking at your own problems and your own suffering first is not selfish. Staying with them is selfish. So once you solve them, you realize how you can help other people with that, with the solution, attain the solution, and then use that to help other people. Later on, if you make a mistake, which is out of your uncontrolled habits, you can attain them too and use that mistake and the solution to help other people. You'll have to excuse me for 1 second, okay?
Okay. So I want to tell you that, if you want us to know about questions about your own habits, אם אתם רוצים שאלות על ההרגלים שלכם, אז אתם מוזמנים באמת לכתוב. אני משתדלת להסתכל. I'm looking and I want to, and I will read the questions. We didn't open the microphone because we knew that it will make some difficulties. So if you have questions, write it down. I will ask the questions and you can be part of our conversation. And we want it to be very, very beneficial to you. So try to ask any question, any kind of question, because it will help the webinar itself and it will be beneficial for you, that you will gain something out of it, okay? And this is why we created this stuff.
Okay, let's go on.
Yeah. So you always talk about karma. And we know that if we talk about habits, so habits is kind of karma.
It's karma, it's
Yes.
nothing else, fortunately.
And we know that, I have a question about, do you think that all habits and all karma are related to anger, desire, and ignorance?
Yeah, and they manifest in many ways, like the plus, the minus, and that process that creates the dualities. Because ignorance is a loss of one mind, loss of seeing. It's called avidya in Sanskrit. So losing one mind, losing perception, losing this clear like space, clear like mirror mind creates dualities, and then it becomes a plus type of duality or a minus type of duality, because duality means polarities. So the plus type is the desire, the creation, that guy. In a very strong form, it's greed.
Yeah.
Okay, that's when it goes into an overdrive. And the other is the anger type, is the destruction type, the cleanup type. When it's cleanup, we like it. But when it's killing, we don't like it.
It's like our habits. When it's something that we can manage, we like them. But when it's something that we cannot manage and we struggle with them, we don't like them.
Yeah, some habits, even though some people may seem to manage them, it takes us to the wrong place. And if we can't change the direction, the outcome will always be the same.
What do you mean by direct them correctly?
So, for
Give
instance, let's say
example.
people have a substance abuse problem. if they are not managing that, then they become totally antisocial. They destroy their own lives and that of others. And they become dependent. They have to go to detox and rehab. So many, actually millions of people went through that. The unmanageable drug habit. It's terrible. I've tried to help people coming out of it, just with the meditation way. So my experience shows that it's good to avoid that habit. Now, there's a managed drug usage habit also. So they are the recreational drug users. And they're not destroying their lives. They're not destroying their social connections. They can take work. They can say no to drugs when they are in a working and responsible environment. But when they're not, they get high. Still, the managed drug habit is still taking them to the wrong direction. Because eventually it will end up clouding your mind beyond repair.
At the same time, yeah.
At the same time. So if they cannot change that, then the result will always be the same, whether short term or long term.
Yes. There was a question that sent me before the webinar, one of the participants, and I want to ask it because it was very important for her. So she said that how can we get to the state where we can do things that push us forward and we don't feel that we are forcing ourselves. Many people feel that they want to gain something or they want to do something, or not gain, do something with their life, but they start, they have a lot of energy at the beginning, but then something happens and the energy grows down or withdraws and they don't have any more power, and that's it. They feel that they are forcing themselves to do the change or to do something.
You start with a joke, I continue with the joke, okay?
Okay.
So it's about Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, then Joseph Vissarionovich Stalin, and then Leonid Ilyich Brezhnev, okay? Three important figures of the 20th century.
Already started with huge names.
So the Great Revolution changes Russia into the Soviet Union, and they say to Lenin, Comrade Lenin, we don't have railways.
Okay.
I say, okay, so let's get the furnaces going, let's get the mines going, let's get everything going. Then the mine what you need, have the ore, cast the iron, make the rails, put down into a railway, have all the railways made, okay? Yeah. Then everybody's very happy. Lenin is on the train, Stalin is on the train. Suddenly Lenin gets off, Stalin stays, and after some years, they say, Comrade Stalin, we ran out of railways. We just don't have enough. He says, well, what's behind us, we should put in front of us, then move on. So they just picked up what they used to lay down in Lenin's time, put in front of them, went more and more and more into the future. Brezhnev got on, Stalin got off. Then they say, Comrade Brezhnev, we ran out of rails and we still have a lot of distance in the Soviet Union. So please give us more railways. And then he says, well, cover the windows and go on. We pretend it's there. So when you believe in something and you're the creator, you believe in it because it has some special meaning for you, like the initiative that was in the question, the project, the life span, or sorry, the life chapter, whatever it is. You're the creator. And as it goes on, you run out of juice, you stop believing in it because it's not new anymore and you haven't reached the destination yet. So you're in between. And sometimes it's very disheartening that it gets more complicated than you want it. It takes more money and energy. So unknown factors, they started to come in and start to upset your game plan. That's when we get disheartened. I didn't want it this way. I didn't plan it this way. Well, life is changing. So unpredictability is part of this other great basket of the three I's: after imperfection, interdependence, impermanence. The conditions are not permanent. So what you envision should be a final goal, but you shouldn't cover the way as a pre-planned series of stages and posts that you will have for sure. Sometimes you take a detour, sometimes people hit you, sometimes the world changes. But if you really believe in it, then you will get there. Go back to beginner's mind. Go back to the mind that actually started it. And when you get there, then you will see that your vision was right. Maybe the way you got there was unpredictable and you don't like yourself by the time you get it. Yeah. But if you stop believing in it and you still do it, then it's like a crash course which nobody sees coming, because you enter the third stage, there's nothing ahead of you, but you pretend it's there. You stop believing in it, but you still do it. So then it becomes shell outside, and any attack or attempt from the exterior, it cracks and it's gone.
I can see here a few questions. Another question that someone, Irena, wrote here, protect us, and how does chanting protect us? Well, I can see here a few questions. Another question that someone, Irena, wrote here, protect us, and how does chanting protect us?
Well, I would like to go back to the previous answer when we talked about the wall. Our greatest enemy is our own reactive mind that creates suddenly dualities, either things on fire or freezing, that prevents our minds from going into our habits in a nanosecond. What I need all our participants to understand, that these habits are not some slow motion troglodytes or some slow dinosaurs from the earlier age of our earth, you know, like 75 million years ago. It's very fast. It's faster than we can think, okay? Because subconsciously our habits are always there, you know. Sung Sa-sun used to call them the backseat drivers. He didn't call them archetypes or whatever, you know. The backseat drivers of your car, you don't see them, but they're there. Fast, accurate, and unseen. That's how habits work, before you see them. Mm-hmm. So mantra actually helps you turn your attention inside, and you see those habits that actually start to bump against that karma. Sorry, bump against that mantra. Mm-hmm. And that's your karma. Finally, you see that. So mantra practice can help us by preventing unnecessary and destructive reactions. Second, it can help us actually perceive inside what we have as our patterns, as our interlinked habits. We don't have just one or two, we have thousands of habits totally intermingling and combining into what we call human being. Okay, some of them we want, some of them we want to weed out. Mm-hmm. We have to see them. And the third one, after you see them, you can disengage from them. You cannot identify with them. And these are the three things: protection, perception, and not identification.
I can tell from my own experience, when I used the mantra, I felt like, you know, when I felt it was a conversation that I had with someone, with a colleague, and we didn't succeed to understand each other, nor to listen to each other. And I felt inside anger rising up. So first of all, practicing maybe to recognize, to feel, and to observe the sensation. And when I felt it, I started breathing, and then I started the mantra. I stopped the conversation. I was mantra within the mantra within myself, and the other person asked me, "Is everything okay?" I said, "Yes, everything is fine." And then after you use the mantra, you can see everything. You can see all your sensation in the body and not react from this. And then I could ask him. Then I saw the question rising up. What will help the situation? How can we talk together without not listening to each other? So when you practice it, it becomes like something that stays within, and it just jumps when you in a situation when you need it. So this is how it protected me in a situation. And this is from my own experience. There is another question. Heli asks, "What is karma? What is the karma when you feel inconvenience to stand in front of a person that raises his voice against you?" So you already know the karma. what is your real question, Khali? We need it to be more accurate.
Why is that person raising his voice? Can you be more specific? Is it in a soldier situation, a family situation, in a security check situation?
A job, at your work?
Somebody raising his or her voice is just vibration. Why is it disturbing you?
So we don't know if they listen to us because okay. So
like when I'm lining up very early in the morning at Ben Gurion Airport, and somebody is missing his or her slot with the check-in, I say, "Next, please." It's raising. I'm very happy. Okay, somebody is raising. Then my job is to go there. Thank you very much. It was a shout. I respond. In other situations, when a security guard is screaming at somebody not showing his or her purse, I'm unhappy because something may be wrong. So we need you to be more specific, please.
Okay. We will wait for her reaction for Khali, but we will keep on, and if you will write us, so I will react to this, but we will keep on.
Actually, something we can say right away, if you feel inferior or weak or inconvenienced in this way, then your mental stamina has to be stronger. That you're not absorbing it, you're reflecting it. You don't think that it's destroying you because somebody is screaming at you, but you just hear the scream and not react to that. It's making you stronger anyway.
I will tell us another.
Sorry, we call that strong center. That's why we do Tantian practice. When you're in your Tantian, your upper chakra's reaction and your sensory perceptions, they cannot control you. You perceive, but you don't react. You understand, but you're not thinking about it. You feel, but you don't have adverse reactions and emotions. Something you can attain if you have strong Tantian practice. Then any kind of voice, soft voice, harsh voice, somebody raising voice, sometimes whispering. Sometimes there's someone whispering to me from a distance and it makes me totally nervous because I can't hear it so well. Okay.
Another question that all sent me before.
Okay.
That for a person that does not succeed to integrate between the teaching, the Zen teaching, and the function in life. So she asked it, when does the teaching stops? When do we start to function? Because I do not know how to manage them both.
So without Zen, did you function well in life? Is it Zen practice that seems to be the hindrance before the integration? Because usually people have some life problem or mind problem or something they cannot resolve, then they use some practice. Think about Zen as something very human and not so abstract. The teaching doesn't exist outside of our own minds. It doesn't exist outside of our own relationship matrix. So Zen teaching doesn't exist without us. Why would it stop? We don't stop until we die. Maybe not even then, who knows?
Like everything is teaching. Functioning is teaching too.
So becoming one, I think, is more important than taking things in or out of our equations. So keep this one mind. That's all you need to do. Keep this moment clear. When you have this moment clear, then there's no question of teaching or stopping or being separate, etc.
I think, the sentence that Sun Sansonim used to say, just do it, is the most important.
And that's why I'm very careful with it, because just do it. And 99% people don't understand. So now that you said it, there was a kind of pyramid underneath, and you could put the
just do it
on top. Yeah, now we understand what is just do it. Spent a few years with that.
Yes.
What did he mean?
When I started to make the first steps in become one north, so we just moved to the north. There were no people. I didn't know people from the north, and I knew that there will be a Zen center and that people will come to practice and teaching and so on. And at the beginning, I went to someone that gave me instructions what to do, and he told me you should make phone calls to people and try to convince them to come.
Interesting.
And it was like, I was shocked at the beginning, and I was very shy, like, call people and I will try to sell them Zen. And then I decided that I take this sentence of just do it, and I just do it. I don't think, because if I will think, I will not do it. And I raised the first phone, and the conversation was so fine and wonderful. And then the next one was okay. And then but every call, I had this feeling and sensations, and I didn't want to do it. And
you're very brave.
And I did it.
My last 30 years, I never called people to convince them to practice Zen. After they came, of course, we had some conversations, but yeah, I think your culture is different in this regard, because here you can't really just enter people's lives with a proposition like that. Congratulations.
We did. We succeeded.
Yes,
the Zen center in Haifa is growing and it's working and everything. So, yeah, but just do it helped me. Like before every call, I just do it, and then now I can say that when I call people that I don't know, it's fun. I enjoy it.
Especially when you don't know them. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
But when you just do it and you have no sense of gain or loss, and just do it, without dualistic mind, but clear eyes, clear ears, clear intention, clear method, but no dualistic thinking and expectations, etc. First, even before Zen, I did some martial arts, and then I understood that. Because if you think about gain or loss, that's when they hit you.
Yeah.
So without thinking, you are already complete. That's another Sumsansrim statement. We love him for that.
Tell me, Sunim, what happens when the path becomes a habit? Can it happen?
Yeah, it can. It saves you from a lot of suffering. The path must become a habit if you are really on the bodhisattva way. So we say wake up and help all beings. Waking up is becoming a habit too if you practice a lot. That's why habits are originally empty. They are neither good nor bad. But depending on the habits that you build up, that's where your life is going, and that's the region where you are headed, and that's how it will end. Have you seen this very funny movie, I think, 1993 with Bill Murray, Groundhog Day? You should. It's like, the story is that they have to check the groundhog whether it comes out on a certain day in spring, and that determines whether it will be immediately spring or cold for the next 1 month or 2 months, whatever. So it's Groundhog Day, and there's a crew of, like 3 people, and they go from the TV station down to this village, and they have the Groundhog Festival, and it's a big kind of folk festivity type of thing, and they check the groundhog, then they spend the night there, and in the morning they leave. And it turns out that for this guy, the anchor, the guy, he doesn't leave the city, but he jumps back one day when they arrive in the city. And he finishes the day, he sleeps over, and the next morning he jumps back again. He can't leave the time cycle. That's why it's called Groundhog Day, because for him, it seems that forever it's Groundhog Day. So being in that time loop becomes his habit. So the movie shows our habit force. Everybody has the next day, only he has Groundhog Day. So they start to live their lives, but he always jumps back, and he tries so many things to get out of it, he can't. But eventually he finds something which can put him into the correct linear future. I won't tell you what that is. I won't tell our listeners. Groundhog Day, you will love it. Bill Murray. Fantastic teaching. Whoever worked that out really had something. It's good. Yeah. So you can only melt your habits if you melt your ego. And that's the main message of the movie. How it's delivered, again, I'm not going to tell you, but the moment someone else becomes more important than him, and his ego melts and something greater appears, which is neither religious nor materialistic nor scientific nor symbolic, and it's really great the way it appears at the end of the movie. It's totally believable. And then the next thing appears, the next step. Then he can get out of the loop, the infinite loop. And
can we live without habits?
No, we can't. We can form the right habits. We can, first of all, we can recognize if we have the wrong habits because we suffer and we make others suffer. Mm-hmm. We can understand our habits, learn a lot about it, etc. In one way or another, whether in a critical moment or a chosen moment, crisis doesn't wait for you. You don't choose them. Crisis chooses you. That's when your habits, reach critical mass. Well, you can start in that way, and you can start earlier if you are insightful enough. You detach from your habits. You don't act them out. You go into a retreat, literally into a retreat. You retreat from your habits. That's why the word. And you stop your identification with your habits as much as possible. Depending on the length of the retreat, the kind of spirituality that you practice, you can go all the way or part of the way. And then by choice, you rebuild the habits. Rebuild those habits you want to live with. And discard those habits you don't want to live with. And you see the direction and you don't rationalize it. You don't explain to yourself why you carry destructive habits or unuseful habits, useless things, etc. And it's not an intellectual game. It's really coming from the heart. So detachment, not identification, then a continuous and really conscious rebuild of yourself into a different person. And if you don't do it, then life will do it for you.
Did you do something like that? Can you tell me about something that you changed?
Well, I would like to talk about something not Zen that changed me in this way. Then I recognized the pattern later and used it for something else. It was the army. I was part of the conscripted army period in Hungary. We were part of the Warsaw Pact. And between 1986 and 87, I did 1 year of real army service, not some operetto, but real army service, stationed in southwest Hungary. By law, I'm still not at liberty to disclose the exact location and the number of the designated Hungarian army unit where I was. No, of course, people do that, but still, I am obligated not to disclose that, although it wasn't so secret. Suffice it to say, we were one of the 3 first reaction units to counterattack if the country is in any way challenged by the NATO forces of that time. So we were actually trained to fight. And it really breaks your ego. It breaks your kind of civilian self. And it rebuilds you into a soldier. Now, you are in Israel, from Israel. You know what that means. Your army does that 10 times more to you than the Hungarian thing ever did to me. Yet I felt it. They teach you to discard all your previous conditioning and reservations, what it means to be a citizen, a human being, whether you are allowed to kill or not, or maim or injure, or what this is. Everything, follow the rules of engagement and protect your country. That's it. These are the habits that is built into you as a soldier. So after the 1 year was over, I was no longer a soldier. I had to transform those habits because they actually teach you good things there, to be on time, to be disciplined, to be tidy, to be cooperative, to put down your own opinions. This is not just for the army, this is for normal human being. So you put down the weapon and, less than 10 years later, I was a Zen monk, In fact, 7 years later, I was a Zen monk. Say, hey, this is like the army, but we have Zen sticks and not machine guns. That's much better.
We don't kill.
Yeah, we don't kill. We actually only kill our habits that we don't want, okay? And all that discipline, everything that we believed in as a good solution for problems, they worked. They worked. So we use it for something else. But first of all, we have to have this basic recognition that we are in control of our habits and not our previous creation controls us, because we humans are so paradoxical. You build a house out of your own effort, then you become a servant in the house, and then you don't repair it, and the house collapses on you, and then you die. Makes no sense.
And we do it.
Yeah, we do it all the time. And then we blame the world for collapsing the house on us.
Yes.
It's useless, because if we build it, we maintain it. And we shouldn't do it alone, just for ourselves. And that's why isolation and loneliness are the biggest killers. Yeah, you need time for yourself, but we are a networked entity collection. So we human beings are networked, and we depend on each other in so many ways. So in one way or another, you enter a family, whether it's a flesh and blood family, or you enter monk's family, or if you're a woman, a nun's family. We are in a group, whether by blood relationship or other kinds of commitments. Of course, people go solo for 100 days, or even 1 or 2 years, 3 years. I've seen people in hermitages like 10 years. Still, in the hermitage, after a few years, they received, donations, and they received help and students. But if you want to change your habits, sometimes you have to get out of the environment. That's why I said what I said. Then you can change your habits in marvelous ways.
But I think, there was the story of Tenzin Palmo, when she told about herself that she was 12 years in the cave, and then she had to decide whether to go back to the cave to her solo retreat, or whether to build a nunnery. And then she asked people, and she consulted with people, and someone told her he wasn't a Buddhist. No, someone told her he was a priest. That told her something that was really, really beneficial, and I really agree with what he said, that to build the nunnery for her was the sandpaper for her. I think that we need the environment as a sand. So I think that we need the habits as a guides, to change, because if everything was fine and good and perfect, who would make a change?
Yeah, it's the sandpaper, but you need also the raw material. So if she hadn't been in the cave, would there be anything to apply the sandpaper to?
So if a person does not practice, he doesn't have the raw material for that?
We all have the raw material, but we need extreme pressure to turn carbon into diamond. We don't do that. You can put sandpaper over carbon, not much happens. But you start to chisel a diamond in this wonderful way. I mean, you guys have this huge jewelry culture. When I take a car, in Israel, there's a Hazorfim on the mountaintop. It's huge. It's huge.
Yes.
They can afford that sign because they know how to make diamonds look very nice. They don't polish coal, they polish diamonds. So if you don't practice, there's not much that comes out of the polishing. Maybe a good person comes out of it, maybe a correct human being, but nothing extraordinary or transcendental. I think these two are intimately related, that spending 10, 12 years in a cave, actually I saw her YouTube video, and I saw her, I don't want to say the wrong thing. Yeah, the YouTube video I've seen for sure.
Yeah, we saw it together.
Yeah, and she has the gift. So it's clear that the next step was the nunnery.
Yeah.
Going back to the cave, maybe the diamond remains unpolished. So polishing it is necessary, but becoming a raw diamond first, that's also necessary.
So, I think we will end it here. Do you have something else to say?
Yeah, don't be afraid of your habits. That's very important. If you're afraid of your habits, you cannot change them. If you are totally into your habits and you love your habits, also cannot change them.
And accept that there exists.
Accept their existence, but also accept that originally they are emptiness. So they are created and they don't
by our minds.
They don't have a life of their own, independent of your mind's creation. That's, yes, I think, important.
So if we create them, we can create something else.
Also, I think we should say that if you develop habits, don't develop it just for yourself. Develop those habits that are incorporating other people, and actually help other people. And then you will see that that actually habits are neither good nor bad, but they need a certain environment to be useful. Like I have a student, he used to be an alcoholic, really hardcore. Then he got this big hit in his face from his friend that you drink one more and you die. And he was right. So he started to come up at the other end of the bell curve, the inverted bell curve. And he became sober. And now he's at the clinic helping other alcoholics become sober. And that became his passion. He's very passionate about helping other alcoholics. He's a great guy. And that's why I keep teaching him. So.
You know, when you said that, do it not for yourself,
Yeah.
there was once I heard TED lecture, and there was a priest again, and he wrote a book about purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And the first sentence of the book was, "It's not about you." And I think it's a perfect beginning. It's not about you.
Finally, you bought the book for $15 to $20, whether it's Kindle or printed.
Yes.
The first is, it's not about
it's not about you.
I bought this
Yes,
thing, and it's not about me.
you.
Thank you very much. You know?
Yeah. And whenever people come to me, they wanted to talk about themselves and to change their feelings and emotion, and we turn to what you do for other people, and
Mm-hmm.
they go back, I want it for myself. And if they create the want and the self within, they cannot free themselves from the bonds.
Yeah.
Hello. So another person entered, and we need to say goodbye.
Yeah, thank you for listening. I'm sorry for those who couldn't hear our voices. Maybe the downloaded version will help you. And again, we appreciate your attention, and practice if you want to, and practice even if right now you don't want to, but maybe tomorrow. Okay?
Practice even right now if you don't see the benefit of it, but you will see tomorrow or the next day. This is the most important.
And remember, it's not about you.
It's not about you.
It's about all of us.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.